Good morning, everybody. My name is Brad, and I have a monolith problem. I really want to thank you very much for your time today. Really want to thank Pivotal. I'm very honored to be here to be able to talk about the journey that we're going through at Citi. When I think about that journey, I think about a little bit of my career in terms of having built applications at Microsoft early in my career around executables and binaries. And essentially monoliths, and then moving to Amazon and learning about how to build cloud services at scale. And that led me to Citi. And I get a lot of questions as to why I left Amazon to move to Citi, and really it's simple. There's three things. One is the customer. The first and foremost is the customer. And you think about banking and financial applications and how personal they are. Being able to make a difference in someone's lives about how they're managing their finances on a daily basis is huge. The next is actually the journey of transformation. Very rarely do you get to the opportunity to make change at a 200-year-old bank in terms of both the culture and the technology by which we get to impact and change. And thirdly was actually the commitment from our CEO, Stephen Bird. He talks maniacally about employees needing the change, and he's challenging us on a daily basis as to what are you doing to improve as an individual. But he's also challenging our organization to think differently and have a culture of failing fast and iterating. And when you have that CEO commitment from top down, it's a great place to be able to work and come and have that impact. And so those are really big drivers as to why I made that change, as to why we're doing it. If you think about our starting point, many of you might be familiar with this image from one of our favorite movies. And those, unfortunately, are not our customers rushing for our products at this moment, but I promise they will be soon. This is the environment that we're working in terms of the banks are under a lot of pressure from a lot of different vectors, essentially. It's almost death by 1,000 cuts when you look at all the different awesome innovation that's happening in fintech. And we have the same quality of people in our organization. Unfortunately, the way in which we build software in monolith, as you've seen today, are holding us back from being able to release our innovative and creative ideas to market. And so our starting point actually has bright stars in it with respect to the amazing people that we have, the amount of customers that we have, and then the commitment that we have from our organization to move forward. However, it's not all rosy. As I talked about, we have monolithic code bases, massive horizontal layers in our infrastructure. Really, I could simplify it down to 3 thick layers. We have proprietary infrastructure, and as you've seen today, a negative engineering pattern is handing off codes between different organizations, and we do a lot of that as well. We also work in a waterfall process to a large degree. We're making inroads there and making great changes, but this limits us to 4 releases a year. When you talk about iterating and innovating and having that awesome closed feedback loop with your customers, 4 major releases a year. We also have 4 minors, but 4 releases a year is limiting in terms of the impact that you can have. And at the end of our process is a large testing and integration phase. In addition, there's this concept called business as usual in terms of a lot of incumbent legacy thinking around heavy governance and a culture of needing to break that governance down by challenging the status quo. It's way too easy to go along with the notion of, well, we've been doing this for 25 years, we're not going to challenge that. No, that's about that huge culture change that you're hearing today people talk about that needs to shift. So as a result, we feel a lot of pain. Our line of businesses within Citi, they want to move quicker, they want to innovate, they want to bring more product to market, but they can't. It takes up to 20 teams to release a bit of software in terms of all the coordination required to launch something. My dev teams are extremely frustrated. They're working hard every day, pounding the keyboard, cranking out great code, and yet they can't get it out either. And the net result of this is that our customers feel that pain, right? They're unfortunately the beneficiary of an environment of friction in terms of how we launch that code. So what do we do in the transform? We've broken the problem really down into 3 different work streams in terms of the people, how we operate, and the technology stack, with the end state obviously leading us towards quicker speed to market, mobile first, and cloud enabled. The approach that we took, when you think about how big a bank could be, is let's not try to transform the entire bank at one hit. Why don't we break off a team? They're going to work on brand new code, a brand new application, and their job is to go break the glass. Their job is to challenge every status quo that exists in the bank today. Their job is to build in a new way. Their job is to just essentially break the bank down and force the conversations that have been needing to happen. And so we did that with 76 devs and a supporting cast, building a wealth management product that we're going to be releasing it towards the end of this year. In addition, the digital team took on essentially the downstream effect of what the glass has been broken. But instead of building net new, this is a team that's building product as we go. So it's essentially, how do you take what you learned from the decomposition of all of the status quos and build it into a model where you're actually changing the wheels on the bus as it moves forward. And that's actually a difficult problem. It's a lot easier if you isolate a little group and say, go break glass. It's a whole different story when you're trying to change an existing environment that's running. And so we've made it through that stage, and we're actually entering the phase where we're about to scale this out to my entire development team. So the first step that we went through is changing of the culture, and really it was rebalancing around what our center is. And our center is now our customer. We're maniacally focused about that customer. And as a leading tag for our organization is, yeah, we're a tech organization who does banking, but we think like our customers, not like bankers. And that was a huge pivot to get to the point where we also aligned my organization to focus on the line of businesses. We went from being channel in terms of mobile devices and in terms of internet, to actually focused on retail bank, to focus on cards business, to focus on our digital businesses. And what you get with that is you get alignment. You get direct alignment between a decision maker who has the money to fund something to a backlog to an engineering team that can execute against that, rather than this Borg of PMO trying to enable you to go and deliver software. And so other tactics that we use to make the change or mechanisms is co-locating teams. I think I had people across 26 different regions. We're trying to bring them down into 4 regions. Today, my workforce is 80% contractors. We're flipping that model. By the end of 2017, we'll be flipped over to be 80% employees and 20% contractors. That way, I'm driving a culture of ownership. I'm driving a different enablement of product-level thinking and autonomy and decision-making pushed down into the business. And then, obviously, the alignment between business and technology. What you get with this is a higher risk of terms of perhaps errors happening when you're driving that decision-making down. But that's what you want, because you want that autonomous decision-making being at your dev teams and at your product teams, and you want them to learn from their mistakes and improve through a correction of error process so that you end up with a stronger organization in the end. In terms of transforming how we build and operate, when you think about an agile operating model, obviously many of you and most of you hopefully here understand this very simply. But one of the things that we've seen is by really co-locating this Scrum team and working directly with the business owner and the stakeholders, that step of getting, especially at a bank, getting through the regulatory and compliance requirements, in this model, we've seen a 57% increase of speed in terms of us being able to deliver code by getting all of those requirements from compliance and security and regulatory into actually user stories. So we're driving our compliance group to work in a new way in terms of writing a user story that goes into a backlog, and then we address that backlog, and that's improved our speed tremendously. We're not fully done with step number 2 in terms of full CI/CD by embedding DevOps into our organization, but that's where we're headed next. In terms of enabling a culture of builders, every company has kind of, I'm sure, principles and tenets by which they want to build by, but these are ours. These are ours that are being created by our organization, and I use these on a daily basis when we're talking about engineering discussions amongst our employees. And just some more. We focused on 10 of these. So when you think about where we are today, we have huge proprietary infrastructure. We have long lead times to provision the software. We have these monolithic 3-layered apps, and then we go into this long delivery pipeline. Tomorrow, as we break apart this monolith, we're enabling speed at a more discrete level, at a microservices level, so that we can get through and deliver the capability to our customers sooner. Unfortunately, today, what we've done is we've also built and lifted and shifted our monolithic stack across multiple channels, as well as across multiple regions. And that leads to a lot of complexity and a lot of redundancy in our stack. And obviously, tomorrow, when you think about where we're headed, we're going to be breaking apart our microservice platform and driving it towards whether it be a UI layer and services layer, and then a back-end data layer. And our end state is that you get this nicely bounded context microservice. However, most of you in the industry today have probably over your career inherited a platform that you deem probably not meeting your bar at the time. And I'm not saying this about mine, I'm just saying in general, this is kind of a lot of the starting points. I inherited at Amazon multiple platforms that I had to essentially decompose. And so many of us have been here if you're in the industry long enough. And your first tendency might be to take this thing and chop it all up and stuff it up into the cloud because everyone's talking like, yeah, microservices and cloud, that's the right way to go. If you do that, I just want to let you know you will end up with this. And so our approach at Citi is to not do this, but to take the opportunity of rebuilding a platform, starting with an approach that we have a bottoms-up approach and we have a top-down approach. And the bottoms-up approach is essentially decomposing and refactoring the existing code. You don't want to throw that away. I mean, it's very important. It's your asset. So how do you build that back up? At the same time, taking down business requirements that are reforming how you're thinking about your product. And through that, you build tech stories, you build a backlog, you build services, and then the most important thing, you end up with this thing called the service catalog at the end of it. And that's super important when you're a global company like we are, where we have builders all around the globe. You don't want all of a sudden everyone just cranking on building microservices and then everyone's building redundant services. Then you got to refactor those redundant services later. So you figure out a way in which you can communicate what each group around the world is doing. That's about the microservices layer, and we've chosen, and through our approach in terms of rationalizing these horizontal layers, we've chosen to focus on what's the biggest impact to the customer and to our businesses, which is essentially forking the middle layer and the front end away from the back end and ignoring the back end to start with. We're going to obfuscate the back end so we can get that speed to market about what really matters in terms of the customer experiences. And then as we go through this journey over time, we'll start decomposing the business logic, which is unfortunately in other horizontal layers deeper in our stack. We'll pull that business logic up into the microservices that we built in phase one, and then eventually we'll pull that data and relate the data that is owned by various services to the service that builds it itself. So I get the end state goal of what we need, which is a decoupled platform, little bits, Lego blocks that can be reused anywhere around the world to create the experiences that we need for our customers. Oh, I had a build there. And so in closing, we've had a lot of momentum over the last 8 months. What I'm most proud about is the fact that we've released 3 times the number of features in my digital organization this year than what we did last year. And that's attributed to the guys sitting in the front row, a bunch of my leadership team, who've been maniacally focused and embedded in the process of change. I can't say enough about an organization that really has been waiting and driving and wanting this change. And then I'm super excited about our infrastructure organization in Citi. It's called CTI and CTO. They've done an amazing job standing up the infrastructure that's enabling us to go and deliver this. Obviously, it can't be just done with a digital apps team. You need that DevOps and that infrastructure team to be leading the way with you. And then, in addition, today we have over 300 employees that are working in an agile Scrum model, where 8 months ago we didn't. We only had about 3 teams working in that way. And so we're putting in all the places that are enabling us to succeed, to be able to deliver great services and great capabilities and features to our customers. So in closing, I really want to thank Pivotal for their commitment to our organization shift. One plug is we've done an assessment of what it takes to train your own employees independently, not building software, versus working with Pivotal and training your employees and at the same time building source code. And it turns out working with Pivotal to build and train at the same time is 3x efficient in terms of a cost, rather than trying to train your own employees on your own and then decouple the building of the software from that. And big plug for Bill and especially Doug, who works with us on a daily basis, and we drive him crazy, so thank you. And by the way, I'm plugging, we're hiring. You see what we're doing. We're enabling the future. Please reach out to Rebecca, and I really just want to thank you all for your time today. Again, quite honored to be here, so cheers.